Hey, welcome to my channel. We saw what would happen basically. We were wondering what would happen with the Mets when, with everything that's going on. We said that they need a number one starter. It looks like they sort of did, but at what cost? Because the thing is we traded Jet Williams and Sprout was my biggest concern. That I think we overpaid for Peralta, and the other factor is if Peralta doesn't sign with the Mets after next season, after this season, it we just basically traded away for a rental player basically, and it shows that Stearns for some or whatever reason has his fixation on his former team, the Brewers. I don't understand why, but the question is this: is this a good trade for the Mets? Short term, I would say yes. Long term, I don't think so, honestly, because just like what we did with PCA, he's turning out to be really good. And like we would have had that center fielder if we never traded for Baez at that time. So the question is like by trading Sprout, maybe even Williams too. I don't know. Like it might have been an overpay at this point for Peralta. And if he turns out to be short term, where he decides to leave after the season, it might not be a thing that. This is something that might we come back to regret us basically and hit us, bite us in the butt, because quite honestly, it's more so to the fact of what Sprout has how not what but how Sprout has progressed through the minors. Everyone was touting like Sprout, but then Jonah Tong came up, and then essentially McLean came up first, and then Tong, and then Sprout. Because the thing is like Sprout, it took him a while to get up there compared to the other two. Let's be honest, but at the same time, for each time that he got into that that league or that tier, double A, single A, then triple A, or single A, double A, then triple A, and then to the majors, he started very slow and wasn't that great, but then he progressed because he just needed to grow basically a little bit more comfortable in that situation. So the fact of the matter is like, is this something that's going to bite us in the butt down the line where Sprout becomes a dominant pitcher? I have a feeling he's going to become a very dominant pitcher. And this is a guy that we could have had for quite a long time. For a guy that may or may not last for, more than 3 seasons. Who knows? I mean, Peralta, yes, he might help us out. He's definitely a starter, but I think we gave up too much for him. If this was Skeens, it might be a different story. I might say, yeah, okay. I mean, we got a steal, yes. Peralta, I mean, he helped the Brewers, have the best record in the majors last year. Let's be honest. But the problem is like they faced the Dodgers. His pitching wasn't well enough to keep the Dodgers at bay. So I don't know how this helps out in the Mets, because does Peralta and McLean, are they enough to move forward? Because we saw that you need pitching. And the Mets, let's be honest, last year at one point they had the best record in the majors, 45 and 13, I think, or something like that, or 45 and 20. They had the best, but then they went 38 and 54 at that point. I mean, quite honestly, it was because of their pitching, and so it makes sense to now address the problem, which they did by getting Peralta, but I think at a cost. So yeah, I know I'm basically saying, hey, Peralta, you're saying two different things. Peralta is like great for the Mets, but at the same time we're losing out. It is, because the thing is like, yes, we needed Peralta, but I think we could have gotten Peralta for maybe someone else besides Jet. I think they were focusing on Jet Williams, but I think we could have given someone else at this point, quite honestly, beside uh, uh, I think we should have just given Jet Williams and maybe someone else, maybe a Senga. I think Isenga or a David Peterson. Honestly, I would have preferred David Peterson, because Peterson I don't think is going to do well for the Mets. I think we've seen him at his peak 2 seasons ago. I think now it's at a point where he's going on the decline. It would have been better if we traded Manea. Honestly, I know what he did for us 2 years ago, but I think now it's a case where he's he's already been identified. He's already hitters know how to hit him now at this point based on his adjustments. I think he's not going to do well this season. Unfortunately, I'm sad to say it, but this is a case where this is a guy that's not going to do well this season. Peralta with McLean, I think they're the 1-2 punch that we need. We need a number 2, 3, and 4 starter basically at that point as well too. And I think Sprout would have been basically put it this way: Peralta, McLean, and Sprout. Those three alone would have done really well for the Mets. Tong, I don't think is going to be a starter. I don't think he's going to last that long as a starter. He's probably going to be a short-term starter type of thing. He's more of going to be a middle reliever. I think honestly he should be a closer, but only time will tell at that point. But like I said, this is a case where I think it's good that the Mets got Peralta, but I don't think it's good to the point what they gave up for him. Because honestly, I think it's a case where like I think we needed to keep Sprout. We could have traded Manea, Senga, even Peterson. Honestly, I honestly think that we could have traded Peterson. Miguel, if he stays healthy, he actually, you know what? Miguel could have been perfect too for him actually for Sprout. Not for Sprout for Peralta, but I didn't want to give up Sprout. Put it this way, I think it's going to come to bite us basically. Just like PCA, we seen what PCA did for Pete Crow Armstrong, of course, what he did for the Cubs, and I have a feeling he's going to elevate himself even more. So this is going to change considerably for us, and it's not. I think it's going to come to bite us. And Stearns, I think he wants to put his footprint. I think he wants to make his team, but I think he wants to pull the players that he drafted for the Brewers back onto the Mets, basically. In reality, I don't think he wants to. For some reason, I don't know why he can't rebuild the Mets the way it is through the draft and whatnot, and get some players. I mean, like Cohen is willing to pay. You just don't want to have a same situation that you did with a Scherzer and Verlander, where like you overpaid and the team didn't do well. And that's what happened last year. Let's be honest. That's what happened last year. The Mets, the way things were, we overpaid. We were like maybe third most expensive next to the Dodgers, and I think it was the Yankees, or the Yankees were below us, I think. I forget who the second team was. And we had the most fans come out to the games in quite a long time, and they didn't deliver. So I don't know what this holds for us, considering that we let Alonso go. I know I always said, like, Alonso, hey, he's a selfish jerk, whatever it is. I would have preferred to have kept him, but quite honestly, if you know you were never going to sign him, I would have traded him then for some minor leaguers. He would have been a great rental player for some other team, and hey, like boom, we get some great minor leaguers at that point, and maybe use those minor leaguers for some leverage at that point. Quite honestly, but in this situation, it didn't work out for us. Acuna, I mean, he was used to get what we traded for Verlander. We're still paying for Verlander at this point as well too. We basically paid to trade Acuna for basically what's his face. But in any case, I hate to say this, but I have a feeling that, like I said, all right, this definitely keeps the Mets competitive. I'll say this: it keeps the Mets competitive. But do I think that they will be in the playoffs? No, I don't think they'll be in the playoffs. They'll be on the cusp of it, but they're not making the playoffs this season at this point. They are put it this way, they're 2 players short. I believe they're 2 players short of making the playoffs. Do they make a deep run? That's a different story altogether. But yes, they are 2 players short of making the playoffs. I think they will be competitive this year. I do believe they will be competitive. But outside of that, I can't say anything much about that. But reality is, like I said, I like the Peralta trade, but for Jet Williams, yes. But I think we might have overpaid a little bit more with spread, and I think that's going to come to haunt us in the years to come. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. What do you think? Do you think it was a good trade? Do you think it was a bad trade? Do you think by bringing in Peralta with him and McLean and Manea and Senga and Peterson, do you think this is a good enough rotation at this point to put the Mets to get over the hump with the Dodgers, the superpower team that they are? The Dodgers, that is. With that, I'll leave it at that. Unfiltered, unedited, of course, as always, unrehearsed. Until next time.